Greetings. Thanks for coming to the Political Napalm here on YouTube. We're about a week away from Christmas, little under a week. So Merry Christmas and Happy Holidays to you, and also likely Happy New Year's. I'm unsure if I will do a video between Christmas and New Year's. So let's get into TPN, or the Political Napalm News Blast. So, Michael Flynn is getting inducted to the Rhode Island Hall of Fame. Boy howdy, if that does not sound like a travesty, I certainly don't know what does. Michael Flynn, who made his family take the Q oath during a barbecue. Michael Flynn, who waved the white power symbol on a Steve Bannon podcast. Michael Flynn, who sat there and thought that COVID-19 vaccines had nanoparticles in them that was going to be turned on by 5G, is getting inducted into a state's Hall of Fame. The Heritage Hall of Fame, more specifically. What is in the water up there in Rhode Island? I cannot say I've ever heard of anything like this coming out of Rhode Island, and for them to sit there and induct him into the Hall of Fame is beyond the pale. It is absolutely disgusting. This was a guy who Obama's administration warned Trump not to trust. And then towards the end of Trump's sad and diseased reign that he had there for 4 years, Trump pardoned him. Now, the deal was that he had lied about his contacts with Russian sources to Congress. So when this happened over here, that he got inducted into the Heritage Hall of Fame up in Rhode Island, 2 members of that council immediately resigned. The inclusion of Lieutenant General Michael Flynn flies in the face of honorable service, says former Congressman Jim Langevin, who was also selected last week as an honorary inductee. I just couldn't see placing that particular nominee on the same footing with so many fabulous people that have been honored in that way over many years that it's been in existence. It's also been called disappointing and astounding by B. Lanzi and attorney John Tarantino, who also co-signed the letters. There is a right and wrong in the universe, and what has happened here in our view, and according to our moral compasses and consciousness, compels us to resign. Now, Michael Flynn is basically a Q propagandist. This man sits around and spews Russian propaganda, is basically at one end of the Putin pipe, with Putin at one end and Michael Flynn at the other, as kind of really a human centipede of Russian propaganda. Here is the infamous meeting that took place in Moscow, where you can see Flynn sitting right there next to Putin. And of course, there is Jill Stein. This is not doctored. This is not photoshopped in any way, shape, or form. This is the real deal. If you look at Flynn's stuff that he spews on Twitter, it is basically Q propaganda. That's all that this man does. It is so bad that even his own brother has said, I love my brother, but that's it. I'm out. I'm done with this stuff. I'm done with these Republicans. They're essentially, he's saying they are all losers. Flynn is still family to the other Flynn. However, that guy, I believe his first name is Joseph, Joe Flynn, or Michael Flynn's brother, is out. He cannot stomach this crap anymore from Flynn. This, Trump should have gotten martial law going on there when he lost the election. Basically, everything that Flynn spews is Q propaganda, and he likes to tag people on Twitter like DC Drano and just basically other subhuman knuckle draggers. So Rhode Island really screwed up on this one, and they're immediately faced with the fact that people are resigning because this is considered a disgusting nomination. And there's a lot of people who've called for Flynn to be reactivated so he could be court-martialed. At this point in time, he's retired, but people want him to face consequences, and he has also, in the January 6th depositions, pleaded the fifth something like 100 plus times. So this guy is an idiot, and myself, along with many other like and civic-minded individuals, cannot stomach the fact that he continues to spew this crap. In other news, judges out in Arizona have denied Qari Lake's motion to dismiss Stephen Richter's defamation case. So basically, Stephen Richter has said everything that Qari Lake was saying during her run of losing and trying to rack up as many losses as Trump has lost. Qari Lake was defaming Stephen Richter by saying all this voter fraud stuff and things like that. So Stephen Richter filed a defamation case against her. Qari Lake tried to get it dismissed, but that did not happen. Things continue to mount, not in Qari Lake's favor, and similar to Trump, she will just keep on saying everything is rigged against her and that she keeps winning when in reality she's losing, and she'll keep saying she's got avenues to do things when in fact she doesn't. Also, Qari Lake's Twitter and Qari Lake War Room Twitter like to pretty much ban and block anybody who says anything negative about them. So they're just basically a bunch of sensitive snowflakes. The world cannot be done with Qari, with a Q, Qari Lake, soon enough. Qari Lake also used to pal around with a ridiculous, bigoted, racist, and nut bar out there in Arizona. I believe his name was Ethan Schmidt. I haven't seen much about him in a while, but this is the guy who would go in Target and harass people who were of the LGBTQ persuasion and harass Target workers if they displayed anything that was pro-pride and stuff like that. He's been banned from Targets in Arizona, might be banned from the entire store nationwide. Says a whole lot of crazy stuff with his evil villain handlebar mustache and everything. And Qari Lake has palled around with this guy on several occasions. They've met up. They've basically endorsed each other and everything. And he actually might be facing jail time finally. If you've never seen this guy, it is this guy right here with this ridiculous mustache. And he says things like he had 100 Turning Point USA girls lined up and begging to be impregnated by him so he can make a bunch of white Christian ultra nationalist babies. You would actually think this guy is just a ridiculous troll, like a plant trying to make people like him seem so overboard. It's parody. This is him here. This is him with the MAGA hat. No, that's literally what this dude is. And in closing on the Qari Lake stuff over here, basically, this is something that happens within the MAGA world. Colby Covington last weekend lost an attempt to gain a UFC title from Leon Edwards. Now, I watched this particular match, and while Leon did not really put him away, Leon was in control of the fight the whole way, except for a few moments in the 5th round. So it actually caused Leon to win 4 out of the 5 rounds. Colby won 1 of them. At the end of the match, Colby danced up, raised his hands like he had won, and proceeded to act disappointed when the judgment call went 49-46. In other words, 4 rounds to Leon, 1 round to Colby when the match was over, and then proceeded to say the judges were against him, biased against him because he is he's a Trumper, he's a pro-Trump supporter. Trump loves him. Trump was seen leaving the arena before the match had even concluded, all the way up to the post-match interviews and everything. So the 5th round hit, Trump probably was smart enough, amazingly, to know that Colby had absolutely lost. So Trump was snaking his way up the ramps before Colby was, even talking and everything like that. And this is a man who, in the lead up to the match, in the pre-fight press conference, told Leon he was going to put him in the same circle as hell as his relatively recently deceased father. So Colby is such a piece of crap that he brought the death of Leon's father into the pre-match jostling that often occurs between fairly strong enemies in the UFC. Sometimes you have fights between people who know each other well and are friendly. A lot of UFC fights occur between, quote unquote enemies, and the trash talking gets really rough. But Colby Covington is just a giant piece of crap. Lost handily, lost visibly. Immediately popped up. He thought he won, and similar to Qari Lake, was like, no, this is bull. It's because of Trump and blah blah blah. So yeah, that's that. Over here, the next piece of news, John Schneider from the Dukes of Hazzard. Now, the Dukes of Hazzard was part of my childhood. When people sit there and say they want to take the Confederate flag off of references to the General Lee, like I understand the concept behind it. And in a lot of areas, I think people would be right when they would suggest something like that, like statues or monuments to Confederate people. They essentially were giant insurrectionists. They lost. It often is considered in many circles to be kind of a stain on the South and everything. I can get behind that. You see it in Richmond, you see it in North Carolina and other places. People want similar to how Germans deal with that era of the country in which they dealt with Nazism. You have a lot of people who want to remove visible reminders of the Confederacy. Fine to still be in history books and everything. It is something that happened, but day-to-day reminders, people have grown tired of it and don't want them around anymore, and renaming military bases away from Confederate leaders. And that's something that Trump, obviously had fought against. So John Schneider, out of Bo and Luke Duke over there on the Dukes of Hazzard, has said, Mr. President, I believe you are guilty of treason and should be publicly hung. Your son, too. Your response is, ? Sincerely, John Schneider. So one of the Duke boys has completely lost his mind. Now, John Schneider has not done much in recent years. He was on The Masked Singer recently as a donut. As a matter of fact, when he got outed as being the donut recently, he immediately went and tweeted this out. It's sort of like, I'm done with the show. Now I'm going to go be crazy. The last thing I really recall John Schneider doing is he was on a CSI episode, the original CSI team. He was featured there, and maybe an episode where maybe he shot his wife, maybe didn't. That's what I remember of him. But similar to Sorbo and James Woods and Roseanne Barr, it's a bunch of these. Dean Cain, that's another one. It sort of has been Hollywood B and C rate, third rate actors are just coming out of the woodwork, acting like mega assholes to people. And this was a prime example of it. And similar to Qari Lake and Colby Covington in this regard, he immediately the next day was like, I didn't say that. I wasn't threatening anybody. and the post was deleted. Like, dude, we have the screenshots. None of this is photoshopped or made up. You said this, you can't walk it back. And as of right now, the Secret Service is going to be talking to him if all these accounts are correct. So John Schneider, one of the former Dukes of Hazzard, may have messed up. And back to what I was saying, I don't believe if the General Lee was on display at a car show somewhere, or somebody had a General Lee replica, I don't necessarily believe the Confederate flag should be removed, because you're referencing a car that existed in a TV show. I would rather the General Lee than that one season with the strike, and they had the cousins coming on, and I think it was like a yellow Gran Torino for that season. I had a Matchbox car that was the General Lee. I had a member of my family who had a Charger from that era, except it was more the Blade Charger than the General Lee Charger. It was the one with the round rear lights, not the strip lights like the General Lee one. I love Chargers from that era. It is a reference to the show, which by proxy is a reference to the Confederate flag, but I'm not one who thinks that the Confederate flag needs to be stripped from the General Lee. But a lot of things need to be stripped from this guy if this is what he's going to be doing. This is not a bad look. And you might sit there and say, okay, political napalm, but what about what Kathy Griffin did with the headless bloody Trump? I will go on record and say I still say that is a bad idea. The thing is, she tanked her career when she did that. She did come back later, was very apologetic about it. It was a bridge too far, and I think in the world of satire and parody and making statements and everything, what she did on that one was really bad. Can you read into it and say it was a call to violence, that somebody needed to go and do that? No, it was a still picture. She's just holding it up. However, as we could see in this world where people take their cues from voices in their head and things like that, yeah, that is a bad look. And that's not something that I think should be condoned. It is a very weighty statement, that picture. It's extremely heavy. It carries a lot of gravity with it. And I do think it was a bridge too far. And the same thing of what John Schneider here is saying. He is saying violence should occur to Joe Biden. The Kathy Griffin head was not saying violence needed to be directed at Trump, but there are people who could take it that way, which is scary. So I think in both cases, both of these people are wrong. And I don't sit there and say what Kathy did is okay, but what John is doing is bad. Both of them are equally bad, in my opinion. This one is a little bit worse, though, because it is actively calling for the violence and the death, whereas the Kathy one, if anything, you could say is post-death. The violence had already happened. Neither of them are good looks, though. And finally, let's listen to Joe Rogan own himself in real time and then basically poo-poo it once he gets fact-checked over here. So let's listen to this little 2.25 minute clip here from Joe Rogan.
Biden that are doing it now.
Yeah.
They're like, what did I do?
Right.
Like, what did I choose? Like, how is this guy?
Yeah, you just can't listen to an interview where he's saying some of the stuff he says that just makes no sense at all. It's like you can't listen to those interviews and feel like you made a good decision. I don't know how you could.
Did you hear what he said like yesterday or a couple days ago?
Mm-mm.
He was talking about the Revolutionary War. He's like, one of the reasons why we lost the Revolutionary War, one of the problems with the Revolutionary War was they didn't have enough airports.
Yeah.
Have you seen that?
I saw that.
Okay, so first off, that is a ridiculous paraphrasing about what you're about to hear and what you're about to hear was referencing. What I don't understand, and what gets me, is I find it ridiculous Joe does not actually know the original circumstance, because it was a big deal when it happened, and it has continued to be a big deal when people attach this to Trump because of the stupidity in it. But I'm getting the horse in front. I'm getting the cart in front of the horse over here. Let's keep listening.
Like, what the hell?
Like, pull him.
It's crazy.
If you had any other job and you were talking like that,
Yeah.
they would go, "Hey, you're done."
A few moments later.
The same stable genius that said the biggest problem we had in the Revolutionary War is we didn't have enough airports. Whoa.
Yeah, that's it.
Whoa.
Right.
Okay, so I actually take that back a split second. Biden did actually say that we did have enough airports, but the fact that Joe right here still doesn't understand who Biden was referencing, the phrase stable genius should have been the clue, but Joe is so dense. Maybe it's all that horse paste is stuck in his head, but he's so thick-headed and dense, he doesn't actually get the reference that Biden is talking about over here.
What?
Just for the record,
Is that fake?
it's not fake, but he was referencing Trump saying that. Here's what Trump saying it in 2019.
Oh.
Donald Trump said something about that. He didn't say Jesus. He said a stable genius, and that's where the transcription.
Let me hear what it says. What did he say?
In June of 1775, the Continental Congress created a unified army out of the revolutionary forces encamped around Boston and New York, and named after the great George Washington, Commander-in-Chief. The Continental Army suffered a bitter winter of Valley Forge, found glory across the waters of the Delaware, and seized victory from Cornwallis of Yorktown. Our army manned the airport. It ran the ramparts. It took over the airports. It did everything it had to do.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
So he fucked up.
Yeah, he did. But I feel like
Took over
that's
the airport.
you can tell too. It sounds like a little different. He's like, you could tell he like messed up his words, but
Yeah.
he was just, I don't know.
Took over the airports.
Well, that's
It
the
is
thing
funny.
about
But it's-
media these days. It's like
Right.
you
never
got to
know.
look into it.
Well, you know.
So there you go, guys. When I see these, like the Ad Fontes media skew things, and they list Joe Rogan as like low truth, but kind of in the center, I pull my hair out each time I see this. I'm not saying he's Alex Jones. He's not by a lot. But when they keep thinking Joe Rogan is centered, and then he goes and does stuff like this, where he's literally calling for Biden to be fired if he was acting like that at a normal job, and then to find out Trump was actually the one who said it. And if you listen, it's way worse than saying we took over the airports. He says we rammed the ramparts, which is just child level rhyming over there. But he also kind of slurs and stumbles this beginning part here.
Unified Army out of the revolutionary forces encamped around Boston and New
Not
York,
this part.
and named after the great George Washington, Commander-in-Chief. The Continental Army suffered a bitter winter of Valley Forge, found glory across the waters of the Delaware, and seized victory from Cornwallis of Yorktown. Our army manned the airport.
Man the ammo, man the ammo, man the ammo, man the anemones. Like, what is he trying to say over there? He's just like, man the memona,
It ran the ramparts.
ram the
It
ramparts.
took over the airports. It did everything it had to do.
Took over the. So yes, we were flying during the Revolutionary War, and when you talk about ramparts, okay, they are the defensive, and this is always the reference that I know of it to be, is part of a castle or part of a wall in something. So here, what does the ramparts mean? The embankments of the part of a fort's defense. So essentially usually the top area of a wall or castle where you defend from and everything. So ramming the ramparts doesn't conjure up a good physical connotation. You would ram things at ground level. You don't ram things up at their top level where people are defending from. So ramming the ramparts, it's not intelligent speech. It's just Trump going off script with that third grade level of intelligence that he has. And then the airport's like, if somebody wrote him this speech beforehand, he's going off script, or if he wrote it beforehand, he's just such an idiot. And it amazes me that there's people today, and there are always Republicans, who don't know this sequence of events when it occurred in 2019. I think they said it was like, how did you not know he said this? Because it was all over when he did it, because it was so idiotic. If you haven't heard of this, I pity the bubble that you live in. And it's really, really sad when you dive into this stuff and then it makes no difference. Trumpers hear him say that and they're like, well, and you can hear Joe and his guest over here. I mean, the guest is kind of looking shady and shifty when he's talking about it after he gets busted. He's sort of kind of looking down and around. He looks embarrassed, but they're passing it off as a joke. Oh, he's just, that's not really what he meant to say and blah, blah, blah. It makes me really, really sad when people see this pile of stuff that Trump says and everything, and it just makes no difference. They don't think any less of him for it. And that's what happens when you're suckered in to the propaganda. The videos that I do on Jeff Fillion, there's people who are Jeff fans who see the videos, they encounter them, they see the proof laid out in front of them, incontrovertible proof that he's lied about the Russian store robbery, lied about the student-student fight, calling it a student-teacher fight, and then lied about the how things were after that event had occurred. And they've said, I don't care, still with Team Jeff, doesn't matter. You are being lied to and manipulated, and you don't care. The Stockholm Syndrome is amazing to me, because pointing out that Trump said this is one thing. It's like, hey, he's a stupid idiot, but you still get to make up your own mind about it, and it's not directly aimed at you. When somebody like Jeff weaponizes and propagandizes stuff to keep his fans in line and aggravated and motivated and like essentially bunker level preparing for things, promoting replacement theory like he's done recently, how can you not be upset to find out this dude's been lying to me? He's been lying to me. I've seen the proof. He's been called out. He's been fact checked. And I don't care. And that amazes me that people are okay with being lied to so consistently and being manipulated, being emotionally manipulated, and having your brain scooped out, twisted around, run through a pasta roller, shaped, and then put back in your head due to lies. It absolutely kills me to see people act that way, but unfortunately it happens. And right-wing propaganda is crazy, and people on the right side, just the blivets don't get it. And I don't understand it, but that is all for me here on this episode of the Political Napalm News Blast. Again, Merry Christmas, Happy Holidays to you, Happy New Year if I don't talk to you guys between now and then. Hope your 23 was great. Hope 24 is even better for you. 24 is going to be a crazy year, though. We are leading up to another presidential election, and I think the roller coaster is about ready to pull out of the station, so strap in, folks. It's going to be a doozy. Political Napalm out.